When Emily Carter sent a desperate text message to the wrong number while hiding from her violent boyfriend, she never imagined it would bring a dangerous stranger crashing through her door, or that this one mistake would change everything. In a world where power and fear collide, where broken bones heal but trust is harder to rebuild, one woman discovers that sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places. This is a story of survival, strength, and a love that defies every rule. If you're ready for a journey that will grip your heart, stay until the end, and don't forget to hit that like button and comment your city, so I can see how far this story travels. The bathroom door shuddered against its frame. Emily Carter pressed herself against the cold tile wall, her left arm cradled against her chest at an unnatural angle. Every breath sent fire through her ribs. Blood trickled from her split lip, the metallic taste sharp on her tongue. She could feel her eyes swelling shut, the skin tight and hot beneath her trembling fingers. Another crash. The thin wooden door wouldn't hold much longer. "Emily!" Travis's voice carried that particular edge she'd learned to recognize too late. The one that meant reasoning was over, that words had stopped mattering. "Open this goddamn door right now!" Her phone. Where was her phone? Her vision blurred with tears as she scanned the small bathroom. There, on the edge of the sink where she'd dropped it. Her right hand shook violently as she reached for it, nearly knocking it into the toilet. The screen was cracked from when Travis had thrown it across the living room earlier, but it still glowed to life at her touch. Mom. She needed to call Mom. The door frame splintered. Wood cracked with a sound like breaking bones. Emily's fingers moved across the screen, barely able to see through her tears in her rapidly swelling eye. She found the message thread, or what she thought was the message thread, and typed with desperate, fumbling fingers. "Please help me. He's going to kill me." 1147 Morrison Avenue, apartment 3B. Please hurry. Send. The door exploded inward. Travis filled the doorway, his face twisted with rage, his knuckles still bloody from where he'd already hit her. 3 times. Or was it 4? She'd lost count after the first blow had sent her stumbling backward into the coffee table. "Texting your mommy?" Travis stepped into the small bathroom, his presence sucking all the air from the space. "You think that bitch is going to save you?" Emily couldn't speak. Her jaw felt wrong, potentially broken. She could only stare up at him, her phone clutched in her good hand. Travis reached for her. The phone buzzed. It was such a small sound, barely audible over Travis's heavy breathing and her own thundering heartbeat, but it was enough to make Travis pause, his hand inches from her throat. Emily looked down at the screen. Unknown number. "Where are you?" Her blood turned to ice. That wasn't her mother's number. That wasn't anyone she knew. "Who the fuck is that?" Travis snatched the phone from her hand before she could react. His eyes narrowed as he read the message. "Unknown number? You giving your number to random men now? You fucking whore!" The phone buzzed again in his hand. "Unknown number. Stay inside. I'm on my way." Travis stared at the message for a long moment. Then he laughed, a harsh, ugly sound that made Emily's skin crawl. "This is Rich. Some white knight thinks he's coming to rescue you?" He grabbed Emily by her broken arm. She screamed. "Let him come," Travis snarled, dragging her out of the bathroom. "Let him fucking come. I'll show him what happens to people who interfere in my business." Emily's vision whited out from the pain. She was barely conscious as Travis threw her onto the couch, her broken arm hitting the armrest. Somewhere far away, she heard herself whimpering. "Shut up," Travis ordered. He was pacing now, the phone still in his hand, his other hand flexing and clenching into a fist. "Just shut the fuck up, and let me think." Emily tried to curl into herself, tried to make herself as small as possible. She'd sent the message to the wrong number. A stranger was on their way. Someone who had no idea what they were walking into. Someone who would get hurt because of her mistake. "You know what?" Travis stopped pacing and looked down at her with cold eyes. "Maybe this is perfect. Maybe your little boyfriend can watch what happens when you disrespect me." He grabbed a baseball bat from beside the door. Emily's entire body went numb with terror. Time became strange after that. She couldn't tell if minutes passed or hours. Travis alternated between sitting in the armchair watching her, bat across his knees, and pacing the small living room like a caged animal. Emily tried to stay as still as possible, tried not to draw his attention, tried to think of any way out. There was no way out. The apartment door was locked from the inside, deadbolted. The windows were painted shut. She'd tried them before. Her phone was in Travis's pocket. Her arm was broken. Her ribs were cracked. Her face was swelling. No one was coming to save her. The stranger with the unknown number didn't know what he was walking into. Travis would hurt him, or worse. Then Travis would finish what he'd started with her. The knock on the door, when it came, was gentle, almost polite. Travis's head snapped up. A slow, predatory smile spread across his face. "Well, well, your hero's here." Emily tried to speak, to warn whoever was on the other side, but only a broken croak emerged from her damaged throat. Travis walked to the door, bat in hand. He looked through the peephole and laughed. "Just one guy. Perfect." He unlocked the deadbolt. "Come on in, hero. Come meet your—" He never finished the sentence. The door exploded inward with such force that it ripped the chain lock from the frame. Travis stumbled backward, barely keeping his feet. The bat fell from his hands. The man who stepped through the doorway was unlike anyone Emily had ever seen. Tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders filling out an expensive black suit. Dark hair swept back from a face carved from sharp angles and harder planes. But it was his eyes that made Emily's breath catch. Cold, gray, utterly without mercy. He looked at Travis the way someone might look at an insect. "You must be Travis Cole." His voice was deep, carrying the faint trace of an accent Emily couldn't place. Russian, maybe? Or Eastern European? Travis had recovered his bravado. He snatched up the bat and swung it with all his strength. The stranger caught it one-handed, mid-swing, as casually as someone might catch a ball. Travis's eyes went wide. "Bad choice," the stranger said quietly. What happened next took perhaps 10 seconds. Emily would replay it in her mind countless times afterward, and she still wouldn't be able to say exactly what she saw. The stranger moved with a speed and precision that seemed almost choreographed. One moment Travis was standing, bat in hand, rage on his face. The next, he was on the floor, his arm twisted behind his back at an angle that made Emily wince despite everything he'd done to her. 2 more men entered the apartment. One was built like a tank, with a shaved head and hands the size of dinner plates. The other was leaner, quieter, with observant eyes that cataloged everything in the room. "Mikhail, secure him," the stranger ordered without looking away from Emily. "Victor, check the rest of the apartment." "Boss," the tank-like man, Mikhail, acknowledged. He hauled Travis up like he weighed nothing and zip-tied his wrists behind his back with practiced efficiency. The stranger, the boss, crossed the room to where Emily lay on the couch. As he drew closer, she could see details she'd missed before. The suit was custom-tailored, probably worth more than her yearly salary. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. A watch that could fund a small country glinted on his wrist. Everything about him screamed power and wealth. He knelt beside the couch, bringing himself to her eye level. Up close, Emily could see that his eyes weren't entirely cold. There was something else there, concern maybe, or calculation. "Emily Carter?" His voice had gentled slightly. She managed a small nod. "My name is Nikolai Volkov. You texted me by mistake." He pulled her phone from Travis's pocket and showed her the screen. "But I'm very glad you did." Emily's voice cracked. "I meant to text my mom." "I know." Nikolai's gaze traveled over her injuries with a professional detachment that somehow made her feel safer. He wasn't looking at her with pity. He was assessing. "Your arm is broken. Possible concussion. Cracked ribs." Internal bleeding is unlikely but possible. We need to get you medical attention immediately. Hospital, Emily whispered. I need... No hospital. Nikolai stood, pulling his phone from his pocket. Hospitals ask questions. They involve police. That creates complications. He began typing rapidly. I have a doctor who will ask no questions and provide better care than any emergency room. But do you trust the police to protect you from him? Nikolai gestured toward Travis, who Mikhail had zip-tied to a chair. Do you trust the system that likely let him go after previous complaints? Emily's silence was answer enough. She'd called the police twice before. Both times Travis had charmed his way out of it. Both times he'd made her pay for it later. Dimitri's on his way, Nikolai said, pocketing his phone. Best trauma surgeon in the city. He'll meet us at a secure location. He looked at Victor, who had returned from checking the apartment. What did you find? 1 bedroom, 1 bath. Kitchen is a mess. Signs of a struggle in the living room and bathroom. Victor's gaze settled on Emily with something that might have been sympathy. Found her purse in the bedroom. ID, some cash, no credit cards. He took them, Emily said dully. 3 months ago. He said I didn't need to go anywhere without him. Nikolai's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Mikhail, take out the trash. With pleasure, boss. Mikhail grabbed Travis by the collar. Travis, who had been silent since being subdued, finally found his voice. You can't just... This is kidnapping. I'll press charges. You'll what? Nikolai turned to look at him fully for the first time. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. You'll call the police and explain how you nearly beat a woman to death in your apartment? You'll show them your bloodied knuckles. You'll invite them to document her injuries? Travis's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. I didn't think so. Nikolai's voice was soft, deadly. Mikhail is going to take you somewhere to have a conversation about how you treat women. It will not be a pleasant conversation. After that conversation, you will leave this city and never return. You will never contact Emily Carter again. You will never speak her name again. You will erase her from your memory. Do you understand? You can't. Do you understand? Nikolai's voice didn't rise, but the threat in it was unmistakable. Travis nodded frantically. Good. Mikhail? Come on, you piece of shit. Mikhail hauled Travis toward the door. We got a lot to discuss. Travis's protests faded as the door closed behind them. Suddenly, the apartment was quiet, except for Emily's labored breathing and the distant sound of traffic outside. Nikolai returned his attention to Emily. Can you walk? I don't know. The adrenaline that had kept her functioning was beginning to fade. Everything hurt. Everything. May I? Nikolai gestured toward her. Emily nodded. He slipped one arm under her knees, the other behind her shoulders, and lifted her with a gentleness that seemed at odds with the violence she'd just witnessed. Emily bit back a cry as the movement jostled her broken arm. I'm sorry, Nikolai said quietly. I'll try to minimize the pain. Victor held the door open as Nikolai carried Emily out of the apartment and down the stairs. A black SUV idled at the curb, windows tinted so dark they looked like sheets of obsidian. Victor opened the rear door, and Nikolai slid into the back seat with Emily still in his arms. Careful of her arm, he told Victor, who climbed into the driver's seat. As the SUV pulled away from the curb, Emily looked back at the apartment building one last time. She'd lived there for 8 months. 8 months of walking on eggshells, of making herself smaller, of believing Travis when he said he loved her, when he said he'd change. When he said it was her fault he got angry, she'd never have to see it again. Where are we going? She asked Nikolai. Somewhere safe. Somewhere he can never find you. Nikolai adjusted his hold on her slightly, taking pressure off her ribs. Dimitri will meet us there. He'll set your arm, check your injuries, make sure there's no internal damage. I can't afford... You won't be asked to. Emily looked up at him. He was staring straight ahead, his profile sharp against the passing streetlights. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." For a long moment, Nikolai didn't answer. Then quietly, "You asked for help." I answered. It's that simple. But Emily had the distinct feeling it was anything but simple. The SUV wound through streets she didn't recognize, heading toward a part of the city she'd never been to. The buildings grew taller, more modern. Old warehouses gave way to gleaming high-rises. Money lived here. Power lived here. They pulled into an underground parking garage. Victor flashed a card at the gate, and it rose smoothly. Down, down, down they went, past level after level of luxury cars that cost more than Emily's entire life savings. Finally, Victor parked in a spot marked private. Another man in a dark suit appeared as if from nowhere and opened Nikolai's door. "Everything is ready, sir," the man said in the same faintly accented English. "Good. Dmitri?" "Arrived 10 minutes ago, waiting upstairs." Nikolai carried Emily to a private elevator. Victor inserted a key and pressed the button for the top floor. The elevator was larger than Emily's bathroom had been. Mahogany panels, soft lighting, a faint scent of expensive cologne. It rose so smoothly she barely felt the movement. When the doors opened, they revealed a penthouse apartment that took Emily's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city. Hardwood floors gleamed under recessed lighting. Modern furniture in blacks and grays and whites created a space that looked like it had been ripped from an architecture magazine. Enormous abstract paintings hung on the walls. Everything was immaculate, perfect, intimidating. "This way," Nikolai said, carrying her down a hallway. He brought her to a bedroom that was larger than Travis's entire apartment. A four-poster bed dominated the space. More windows, more perfect furniture, and standing next to the bed, a silver-haired man in his 60s with kind eyes and a doctor's bag. "Dmitri," Nikolai greeted him. "Thank you for coming." Of course, Dmitri's English carried a heavier accent than Nikolai's. "This is the patient?" Emily Carter. Broken arm, possible concussion, suspected cracked ribs. She needs a full examination. "I'll need to set her down," Dmitri said. Nikolai lowered Emily onto the bed with the same careful gentleness. The sheets were soft against her skin, probably thread counts she couldn't even imagine. "I'll be right outside," Nikolai told her. "Dmitri is the best. You're safe now." Then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him. Dmitri pulled up a chair beside the bed. "Now then, Emily, let's see what we're working with, yes? This will hurt, but I'll be as gentle as possible." The examination was thorough and professional. Dmitri asked questions as he worked. Where did it hurt? Could she breathe deeply? Did she feel dizzy or nauseous? His hands were steady and sure as he examined her arm, her ribs, her face. "The arm is definitely broken," he confirmed. "Clean break, fortunately. I'll set it and cast it now. The ribs are cracked, but not broken. Your face will heal, though there will be considerable bruising for several weeks. No signs of internal bleeding, which is very good news." "How long?" Emily's voice cracked. "How long until I can go home?" Dmitri paused in his examination. His eyes, behind wire-rimmed glasses, were infinitely kind. "My dear, where exactly do you think home is right now?" Emily didn't have an answer. "Rest," Dmitri said gently. "Let me set this arm, then you sleep. Tomorrow, things will be clearer." Setting the bone was agony. Emily bit down on a leather strap Dmitri provided and tried not to scream. Tears streamed down her face. At one point, she was certain she would pass out, but Dmitri worked quickly and efficiently. Within 20 minutes, her arm was set and wrapped in a cast. He'd also cleaned and bandaged her other cuts and scrapes, checked her pupils for signs of concussion, and given her something for the pain. "Sleep now," Dmitri said, packing up his bag. "I'll check on you tomorrow." "Wait," Emily managed to say before he left. What about Travis?" Dmitri's expression didn't change. I wouldn't worry about Mr. Cole. Nikolai's people are very good at making problems disappear. That should have terrified her. Instead, Emily felt only relief. After Dmitri left, she lay in the enormous bed and stared at the ceiling. Her mind was a chaos of thoughts and emotions. Fear, relief, confusion, pain medication beginning to dull the edges of everything. She'd texted the wrong number, a simple mistake, and somehow that mistake had brought her here, to this place, with this strange, dangerous man who had saved her life. The door opened softly. Nikolai entered, his suit jacket removed, his shirt sleeves rolled up to his elbows. He looked almost normal like this. Almost human. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Like I got hit by a truck." Emily's voice was hoarse. "Dmitri says you'll heal completely. It will take time, but you'll be fine." "Thank you." The words felt inadequate. "I don't know how to. I can never repay." "You sent a message asking for help," Nikolai interrupted. "I answered, that's all." "But why? You don't know me. I'm nobody." Nikolai was silent for a long moment. He walked to the window and looked out at the city lights. 5 years ago, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. A woman's voice. She said, "Help me." Just those 2 words. By the time I traced the call, she was already dead. Emily's breath caught. "I was too late that time," Nikolai continued, still looking out the window. "I've never forgotten that. So when your message came through tonight, when I saw the fear in your words, I decided I wouldn't be too late again." "I'm sorry," Emily whispered. "About that woman." "So am I." Nikolai turned to face her. "You'll stay here while you heal. This apartment has several guest rooms. You're welcome to use this one. Victor will be nearby if you need anything. I'll have clothes brought for you tomorrow. If you need anything else, just ask." "I can't stay here," Emily protested weakly. "I have a job. Do you have a job?" Nikolai asked quietly. "Or did Travis force you to quit?" Emily's silence was answer enough. Travis had made her quit her job as a waitress 2 months ago, said she was flirting with customers, said she needed to stay home where she belonged. "Rest," Nikolai said. "We'll discuss details tomorrow. For tonight, just rest." He moved toward the door. "Nikolai?" Emily called. He paused, looking back at her. "Who are you? Really?" A faint smile touched his lips. It didn't reach his eyes. "Someone who answers messages from wrong numbers. Sleep well, Emily Carter." Then he was gone. Emily lay in the darkness of the unfamiliar room, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of a building she didn't know, in a bed that cost more than she'd ever owned, in the care of a man who was clearly dangerous and powerful and completely beyond her understanding. She should be terrified. She should be planning her escape. Instead, for the first time in 8 months, she felt safe. The pain medication pulled her down into sleep. Her last conscious thought was that she'd sent a message to the wrong number, and somehow, impossibly, it had been exactly the right one. Outside in the living room, Nikolai poured himself 2 fingers of vodka and stood at the window. His phone buzzed. "Mikhail." "It's handled. He won't be bothering anyone ever again." Nikolai didn't reply. He simply deleted the message and took a drink. In his world, problems were solved with violence and finality. In his world, mercy was weakness and compassion was a liability. He'd built an empire on ruthlessness and fear. He'd done things that would make ordinary people sick, but when he'd read that desperate message tonight, "Please help me, he's going to kill me," something had shifted inside him. Something he'd thought was long dead had stirred to life. He pulled up the message thread on his phone and read it again. "Please help me, he's going to kill me. 1147 Morrison Avenue, apartment 3B, please hurry." 3 simple messages to the wrong number. 3 messages that had brought Emily Carter into his life. Nikolai wasn't a man who believed in fate or destiny. He believed in power and choice and consequence. But standing here now, knowing there was a broken woman healing in his guest room, knowing he'd saved her life, knowing that Travis Cole would never hurt anyone again. Maybe, just maybe, some mistakes were meant to be made. He finished his vodka and set the glass aside. Tomorrow would bring questions. Tomorrow Emily would want answers about who he was, what he did, why he lived in a penthouse that cost more than most people made in a lifetime. Tomorrow, he would have to decide how much truth she could handle. But tonight, she was safe. Tonight, she could sleep without fear. And for Nikolai Volkov, a man whose hands were stained with more blood than he could ever wash away, that was enough. In the guest room, Emily slept deeply, dreamlessly, her broken arm cradled against her chest. The city lights painted patterns on the walls. The silence was profound. And somewhere in the darkness, Travis Cole learned exactly what happened to men who raised their hands to women in Nikolai Volkov's city. It was a lesson he would remember for the rest of his very short life. Morning came with golden light streaming through windows Emily didn't recognize. For one confused, peaceful moment, she forgot where she was. Then the pain reminded her, a dull, throbbing ache in her arm, her ribs, her face. Yesterday came flooding back in fragments. The bathroom, Travis's fists, the wrong number, Nikolai's cold gray eyes. She sat up slowly, her body protesting every movement. The bedroom looked different in daylight, less intimidating, more beautiful. Someone had left clothes folded on a chair by the window. Designer labels she recognized from store windows she'd never dared enter. A note rested on top of the pile. These should fit. Bathroom is through the door on your left. Take your time. N. Emily picked up the note, studying the handwriting. Bold, precise strokes. The kind of penmanship that suggested expensive private schools and old money. She ran her thumb over the single initial. N. Nikolai Volkov, the man who'd saved her life, and then disappeared into his own apartment like a ghost. The bathroom was larger than her entire bedroom at Travis's place. Marble floors, a shower with 6 different heads, a bathtub that could fit 3 people. Emily caught sight of herself in the mirror and stopped cold. She barely recognized the face staring back at her. Her left eye was swollen nearly shut, surrounded by purple and black bruising that spread across her cheekbone. Her lip was split and crusted with dried blood. More bruises bloomed along her jaw, her neck. The cast on her arm seemed to glow white against her battered skin. This was what Travis had done to her. This was the price of loving the wrong man. Emily turned away from the mirror and focused on the practical. She needed to shower, to wash away the blood and fear and memory of last night. But the cast made everything complicated. In the end, she managed an awkward one-armed shower, keeping the cast wrapped in plastic bags she found under the sink. The hot water felt like absolution. She stood under the spray until it ran cold, washing her hair with shampoo that smelled like vanilla and something else she couldn't name. Expensive. Everything here was expensive. Getting dressed proved even more challenging. The clothes Nikolai had left were beautiful. Soft cashmere sweater, dark jeans that fit perfectly, undergarments that still had tags attached. But buttoning jeans one-handed was nearly impossible. Emily was struggling with the zipper when someone knocked softly on the bedroom door. "Miss Carter?" A woman's voice, lightly accented. "May I come in?" Yes?" The door opened to reveal a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and salt and pepper hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wore simple professional clothing and carried a breakfast tray. "I'm Irina," she said with a warm smile. "I manage Mr. Volkov's household. I thought you might need some help, yes?" Emily gestured helplessly at her jeans. "I can't—" "Of course, here, let me." Irina set the tray down and helped Emily finish dressing with the easy competence of someone who'd done this many times before. "There, much better. Now, you must eat. Dmitri said you need to keep your strength up." The breakfast tray held more food than Emily normally ate in a day. Fresh fruit, yogurt, toast with real butter, eggs prepared perfectly, orange juice that tasted like sunshine. Emily's stomach reminded her she hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. "Thank you," she said quietly. This is too much." "Nonsense. You're Mr. Volkov's guest. Nothing is too much." Irina moved around the room with practiced efficiency, opening curtains, straightening pillows. "He asked me to tell you he'll be working from home today if you need anything. His office is at the end of the hall." "Working from home?" Emily took a bite of toast. It was the best toast she'd ever tasted. "What does he do?" Irina's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Mr. Volkov has many business interests: import, export, real estate. He's a very busy man." That was clearly all Emily was going to get. She ate in silence while Irina busied herself around the room. Questions piled up in her mind, each one more pressing than the last. Who was Nikolai Volkov really? What kind of businessman traveled with armed guards and had a trauma surgeon on call? Why had he helped her? And the biggest question of all, what did he want in return? Nothing in Emily's life had ever been free. Her father had demanded perfection in exchange for his approval. Her ex-boyfriends had demanded her independence in exchange for their love. Travis had demanded everything: her job, her friends, her sense of self, in exchange for the privilege of not being alone. What would Nikolai Volkov demand? "Irina?" Emily set down her fork. "How long have you worked for Mr. Volkov?" 12 years. Irina smoothed the bedspread with careful hands. "Since he first came to this city. Is he a good man?" Irina paused, considering the question seriously. "Mr. Volkov is complicated, but I have never seen him harm anyone who didn't deserve it, and I have seen him help many people who had nowhere else to turn. Make of that what you will." It wasn't exactly reassuring, but it wasn't damning either. After breakfast, Emily found herself restless. The apartment was beautiful, but felt like a gilded cage. She wandered the hallways, studying the artwork on the walls, peering into rooms that seemed designed more for show than for living. Everything was immaculate. Everything was expensive. Everything felt temporary, like a hotel suite that just happened to have someone's clothes in the closet. She found herself standing outside the door at the end of the hall. Nikolai's office. She could hear his voice on the other side, speaking in rapid Russian. The words were unintelligible, but the tone was sharp, commanding. This was a man used to being obeyed. Emily raised her hand to knock, then hesitated. What would she even say? "Thank you for saving my life? What kind of business are you really in? Can I leave?" The door opened before she could decide. Nikolai stood there, phone still pressed to his ear, his expression unreadable. He looked different in daylight, no less dangerous, but somehow more human. His shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, his sleeves rolled up. He looked tired. He said something final in Russian and ended the call. "Emily, how are you feeling?" "Better. Thank you for the clothes and the breakfast and..." She gestured vaguely at the apartment. "Everything." "It's nothing. Come in." He stepped aside, ushering her into his office. The room was dominated by a massive desk positioned to face the windows. Multiple monitors displayed what looked like financial data, security camera feeds, documents in various languages. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with volumes in Russian, English, and languages Emily didn't recognize. This was clearly where Nikolai actually spent his time. The rest of the apartment was just window dressing. "Sit," Nikolai said, gesturing to a leather chair across from his desk. "We should talk." Emily sat carefully, cradling her broken arm. "About what?" "About what happens next." Nikolai leaned against his desk, arms crossed. "You can't go back to that apartment. Travis Cole is no longer a threat, but the lease is in his name. Your belongings are there, but I wouldn't recommend retrieving them personally. Travis is no longer a threat." Emily repeated the phrase slowly. "What does that mean?" "It means exactly what I said. He will never bother you again." The finality in his voice sent a chill down Emily's spine. Did you kill him? No. Nikolai's expression didn't change. But I made it very clear what would happen if he ever showed his face in this city again. Mikhail can be very persuasive when he needs to be. Emily should have been horrified. She should have demanded details, should have threatened to go to the police. Instead, she felt only relief. Travis was gone. She was safe. You're taking this well, Nikolai observed. Should I pretend to be upset? He broke my arm. He would have killed me if you hadn't shown up. Emily met his gaze steadily despite her swollen eye. I'm not going to cry for a man like that. Something flickered in Nikolai's eyes. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. Good. Then we can discuss practical matters. You'll need somewhere to live, somewhere safe. I have savings, Emily lied. Travis had taken control of her bank account months ago. I can find a place. With what money? Your bank account is empty. Travis drained it 3 weeks ago. Emily's mouth fell open. How do you know that? I make it my business to know things. Nikolai pulled out his phone and tapped the screen a few times. I've had my people looking into your situation. Travis Cole has a history, 3 prior girlfriends, all with similar stories. Escalating violence, financial control, isolation from family and friends. You're not his first victim. But I'm the last, Emily said quietly. Yes. Nikolai set his phone aside. You're the last. Now about your living situation. I have a property, a secure apartment building I own downtown. Good security, good neighborhood. You can stay there rent-free until you get back on your feet. I can't accept that. Why not? Because I don't take charity, and because nothing is free. Emily forced herself to hold his gaze. What do you want in return? Nikolai was silent for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. It transformed his face, made him look younger, almost approachable. You're smart. I like that. But you're wrong about one thing. Sometimes help is just help. No strings attached. I don't believe you. Then believe this. If I wanted something from you, I would ask for it directly. I don't deal in hidden agendas or manipulation. That's not how I operate. He pushed off from the desk and walked to the window. You need time to heal. You need somewhere safe to do that. I'm offering you both. What you do after that is entirely up to you. Emily studied his profile against the cityscape. He was lying, not about the apartment or the help, but about the no strings attached part. Men like Nikolai Volkov didn't help strangers out of the goodness of their hearts. There was always an angle, always a reason, but right now she didn't have many options. Her bank account was empty. Her apartment was Travis's. Her mother lived 3 states away on a fixed income that barely covered her own expenses. Emily's friends, the few Travis hadn't driven away, didn't have the resources to help her. Nikolai's offer was the only lifeline she had. Okay, she said finally. I'll take the apartment, thank you. Good. Irina will arrange everything. You can move in tomorrow if you'd like, or you can stay here a few more days, whatever you prefer. Tomorrow. Emily stood, ignoring the protest from her ribs. I've imposed on your hospitality enough. It's not an imposition. Nikolai turned from the window. Emily, I want you to understand something. What happened to you, what Travis did, that wasn't your fault. You didn't deserve it. No one deserves that. The unexpected kindness in his voice nearly broke her. Emily blinked hard against sudden tears. I keep thinking I should have left sooner. There were signs, red flags. I ignored them all. Hindsight is cruel. We all make choices we regret. Nikolai crossed the room and stood before her. Up close, she could see faint scars on his knuckles, a thin white line along his jaw. This was a man intimately familiar with violence. But you're here now. You're alive. That's what matters. Is it? Emily whispered. Some days I'm not sure being alive is enough. It is. Trust me. Something dark flickered in his eyes. I've seen what happens when people give up. You're stronger than that. Before Emily could respond, his phone buzzed. Nikolai glanced at the screen and frowned. I need to take this. Irina will help you with anything you need. He was already answering the call in Russian as Emily let herself out of the office. She stood in the hallway for a moment, her head spinning with everything that had happened in the last 12 hours. Yesterday, she'd been trapped in a nightmare with no way out. Today she was standing in a penthouse apartment, being offered a new life by a dangerous stranger. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. Emily spent the rest of the day in her room, alternating between sleep and staring out the window at a city that suddenly seemed full of possibilities. Irina brought lunch, then dinner. Both were delicious, both were eaten in silence. Night fell. The city lights below transformed into rivers of gold and white. Emily's phone, the one Travis had thrown, sat on the nightstand, its cracked screen dark. She hadn't turned it on since last night, hadn't wanted to see the messages from her mother asking why she hadn't replied, hadn't wanted to deal with the concerned texts from the few friends she had left. But she couldn't hide forever. Emily powered on the phone. It took a moment to boot up, the cracked screen making everything slightly distorted. Messages flooded in, her mother frantic with worry, her friend Sarah asking if she was okay. Unknown numbers that were probably debt collectors looking for Travis. And then at the bottom of the list, a message from an unknown number. The same unknown number she'd texted by accident. Nikolai, if you need anything tonight, I'm in my office. Don't hesitate to ask. Emily stared at the message for a long time. Then slowly, she typed a response. Emily, why are you really helping me? The reply came immediately. Nikolai, because 5 years ago, I didn't, and someone died because of it. Emily, that wasn't your fault. Nikolai, wasn't it? She called for help and I was too late. I've had to live with that ever since. When your message came through last night, I saw a chance to be better than I was 5 years ago. To save someone instead of finding their body. That's why I'm helping you. Emily's hands trembled as she read the words. There was a rawness to them, an honesty that felt like a confession. Emily, thank you for saving me, for giving me a second chance. Nikolai, everyone deserves a second chance, even people like me. Sleep well, Emily. She set the phone down and lay back against the pillows. Outside, the city hummed with life. Somewhere out there, Travis was nursing his wounds and learning what it meant to cross Nikolai Volkov. Somewhere out there, people were living their normal lives, unaware that Emily Carter's entire world had shifted on its axis. But here, in this borrowed room, in this borrowed life, Emily felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. The next morning dawned clear and cold. Irina helped Emily pack the few belongings Nikolai had provided, then led her down to the parking garage where Victor waited with the black SUV. Mr. Volkov asked me to give you this, Victor said, handing Emily a new phone. Your old one is barely functional. This one has my number, Irina's number, and Mr. Volkov's number already programmed in. If you need anything, call. Emily took the phone, stunned. I can't. It's a company phone, Victor interrupted smoothly. We have dozens of them. Consider it a loaner. The drive to her new apartment took 20 minutes through morning traffic. Victor pulled up in front of a modern building in a neighborhood Emily had never been able to afford. Clean streets, coffee shops with outdoor seating, people in business suits carrying briefcases and expensive coffee. Third floor, apartment 3C, Victor said, handing her a set of keys. Building has security cameras, controlled access, and a doorman who knows your face. You're safe here. Thank you. Emily pocketed the keys. Tell Nikolai I said thank you. Tell him yourself. He wants you to text him when you're settled. Victor drove away, leaving Emily standing on the sidewalk with a small bag of borrowed clothes and a head full of questions. She made her way inside, past a doorman who nodded politely, and took the elevator to the third floor. Apartment 3C was small compared to Nikolai's penthouse. but it was still nicer than anywhere Emily had ever lived. Hardwood floors, modern appliances, furniture that looked new, a bedroom with an actual closet, a bathroom with a tub and a shower, windows that overlooked the street below. It was perfect. Emily stood in the middle of the living room and let herself feel it, the enormity of what had happened, the weight of this new beginning. 2 days ago, she'd been trapped with a man who was slowly killing her. Now she stood in a beautiful apartment, safe and free, because she'd sent a text message to the wrong number. Her new phone buzzed. Nikolai, Victor says you arrived safely. Do you have everything you need? Emily looked around the apartment, taking inventory. Food in the refrigerator, towels in the bathroom, sheets on the bed. Emily, yes, this is too much. I don't know how to thank you. Nikolai, you don't need to thank me. Just focus on healing. Emily, what about work? I need to find a job. Nikolai, there's time for that. Rest first. Emily, I can't just sit around doing nothing. I'll go crazy. There was a longer pause before his next message. Nikolai, I might have something. If you're interested, we can discuss it when you're ready. Emily stared at the message. Of course he had something. Men like Nikolai Volkov always had an angle, always had a plan. But maybe that was okay. Maybe Emily was tired of making all the wrong choices on her own. Maybe it was time to trust someone who'd already proven he would keep her safe. Emily, I'm interested. Nikolai, good. I'll be in touch. The days that followed fell into an unexpected rhythm. Emily healed slowly, her bruises fading from purple to yellow-green, her ribs aching less with each breath. Dmitri came by twice to check on her progress, always professional, always kind. Irina appeared regularly with groceries and home-cooked meals, refusing to take payment despite Emily's protests. And Nikolai texted her every evening. It started with simple check-ins. How are you feeling? Do you need anything? But gradually evolved into actual conversations. He asked about her day, her favorite books, what she wanted to do with her life. She asked about his work, his past, how he'd ended up in this city. His answers were always careful, always measured. He revealed just enough to seem honest without giving away anything truly important. Emily recognized the technique. She'd used it herself when talking to Travis's friends, parsing out information in carefully controlled doses. But sometimes, late at night, Nikolai would let his guard slip. He told her about growing up in Moscow, about coming to America with nothing but a suitcase and a dangerous skill set. He told her about the woman who'd called him 5 years ago, the one he'd been too late to save. Her name had been Alina. She'd been 23 years old. Emily told him about her childhood in a small town where everyone knew everyone's business, about her father who died when she was 15, leaving her mother to work 3 jobs to keep their house, about the scholarship that had brought her to the city and the dreams she'd had before Travis had systematically destroyed them all. They were 2 broken people, texting in the dark, sharing pieces of themselves they'd never shared with anyone else. It should have felt strange. It should have felt dangerous. Instead, it felt like coming home. 3 weeks after moving into the apartment, Emily got a text from Nikolai that made her heart race. Nikolai, I have a proposal for you. Can you meet me tomorrow afternoon? 2 p.m., the address below. He sent a location, a community center in a neighborhood Emily didn't recognize. Emily, what kind of proposal? Nikolai, the kind that involves helping people, if you're interested. Emily arrived 15 minutes early, her arm still in its cast, but healing well. The community center was a low, sprawling building that had seen better days. Paint peeled from the walls. The parking lot was cracked and weedy, but inside Emily could hear children laughing. Nikolai was waiting in the lobby. He wore jeans and a simple sweater, looking more approachable than Emily had ever seen him. When he smiled at her, it reached his eyes. Thank you for coming, he said. Let me show you around. He led her through the building, explaining as they walked. The center served underprivileged children in the neighborhood, after-school programs, tutoring, meals for kids who might not eat otherwise. It was chronically underfunded and understaffed, surviving on grants and donations that never quite covered expenses. I've been funding it quietly for 2 years, Nikolai explained as they watched children play basketball in a gymnasium that desperately needed new floors. But money isn't the only thing they need. They need someone who cares, someone who understands what it's like to feel invisible. Emily turned to look at him. Why are you telling me this? Because I think you'd be perfect for the job. Nikolai met her gaze steadily. Program coordinator, you'd work with the kids, help organize activities, assist with homework. The director is desperate for help, and I think you'd be good at it. I don't have experience with... You have empathy. You have compassion. You know what it's like to feel powerless. Nikolai's voice was quiet but intense. That's worth more than any degree. Emily looked back at the children playing basketball. One little girl, maybe 8 years old, sat alone in the corner with a book. She looked up as Emily watched, and their eyes met. The girl smiled shyly. Emily's heart clenched. I'll do it, she heard herself say. Nikolai's smile was genuine, transforming his entire face. Good. You start Monday. As they walked back to the lobby, Emily felt something shift inside her. For the first time since Travis's fists had connected with her face, she felt like she had a purpose, something to wake up for, something that mattered. Nikolai, she said as they reached his car, why do you fund this place? What do you get out of it? He was quiet for a moment, his eyes distant. Redemption, he said finally, or at least the hope of it. I've done things, Emily, terrible things, things I can never take back. But maybe if I help enough people, maybe if I make enough of a difference, maybe it balances the scales a little. What kind of terrible things? The kind we don't talk about in parking lots of community centers. He opened the car door for her. Come on, I'll drive you home. They rode in comfortable silence, the city sliding past the windows. Emily studied Nikolai's profile as he drove, trying to reconcile the dangerous man who'd burst into Travis's apartment with the one who funded programs for underprivileged children. You're a contradiction, she said finally. How so? You're ruthless enough to terrify a man like Travis, but you're gentle enough to care about kids who'll never know your name. Nikolai smiled faintly. Maybe I'm just trying to be better than I was. Isn't that what we're all doing? When they reached her apartment, Nikolai walked her to the door despite her protests that she could manage. Healing takes time, he said. Don't rush it. Is that advice for my arm or something else? Both. He hesitated, then added, Emily, I want you to know you can ask me anything about who I am, what I do. I won't lie to you. Are you in the Mafia? The question hung between them. Nikolai's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. That's a complicated question with a complicated answer, he said finally. I run import and export businesses. Some of them are completely legal. Some exist in gray areas. I have relationships with people on both sides of the law. I protect what's mine, and I eliminate threats when necessary. Does that make me Mafia? Depends on your definition. It was the most honest answer Emily could have hoped for, and somehow it didn't scare her as much as it should have. Thank you, she said, for not lying. I told you I wouldn't. Nikolai pulled out his phone and checked something. I have a meeting, but text me later? Let me know how you're feeling. I will. He left her at the door, and Emily watched him walk away with that same predatory grace she'd noticed the first night. This was a dangerous man. A man who lived in shadows and made problems disappear. A man who probably had blood on his hands. But he was also the man who'd saved her life. Who'd given her a home, a job, a future. Who texted her every night to make sure she was okay. Emily closed the door and leaned against it, her heart racing. She was falling for Nikolai Volkov. Slowly, carefully, against every instinct that screamed this was a terrible idea. But maybe terrible ideas were exactly what Emily needed, Maybe safety and security had been overrated all along. Her phone buzzed. Nikolai. Thank you for saying yes to the job. The kids are lucky to have you. Emily smiled as she typed her response. Emily. I think I'm the lucky one. And as she looked around her apartment, safe, warm, hers, Emily realized she meant it. The wrong number had led her here. To this moment. To this life. To Nikolai. Maybe some mistakes were the best things that ever happened to you. Monday morning arrived with autumn rain streaking down Emily's windows. She stood in front of her closet, one-armed and nervous, trying to decide what someone wore to their first day working at a community center funded by a man who might or might not be involved in organized crime. She settled on jeans and a simple blouse, careful not to jostle her cast. The bruises on her face had faded to pale yellow shadows, barely visible under makeup. Her reflection showed someone who looked almost normal, almost like the person she used to be before Travis. The community center smelled like old building and new hope when Emily arrived. Children's artwork covered every available wall space. A bulletin board advertised upcoming events in both English and Spanish. Somewhere deep in the building, someone was playing piano. You must be Emily. A woman in her 50s emerged from an office, hand extended. I'm Patricia Chen, the director. Nikolai told me you'd be starting today. Patricia's handshake was firm, her smile genuine. She had the kind of face that inspired trust. Laugh lines around her eyes, gray hair she didn't bother to dye. The comfortable posture of someone who'd spent decades working with children. Thank you for having me, Emily said. I'm excited to start. Let me show you around properly. Patricia led her through the building, introducing staff members whose names Emily tried desperately to remember. There was Marcus, the sports coordinator, built like a linebacker with a gentle voice. Sophia, who ran the tutoring program, barely out of college herself. Tom, the janitor who'd worked here for 30 years and knew every child's name. They ended in a large room filled with beanbag chairs, bookshelves, and art supplies. This is where you'll spend most of your time, Patricia explained. After school program, 3 to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. We get about 40 kids on average. Your job is to keep them safe, engaged, and learning. Think you can handle it? Emily looked at the colorful chaos of the room and felt something warm unfold in her chest. Yes. The children arrived like a thunderstorm at 3 o'clock, backpacks flying, voices raised in excited conversation, energy that seemed boundless. They ranged from 6 to 12 years old, a beautiful mix of races and backgrounds united by the simple fact of needing somewhere safe to go after school. Emily recognized the little girl from her first visit, the one who'd been reading alone in the gym. She slipped into the room quietly, heading straight for the book corner. That's Maya, Sophia whispered to Emily. 8 years old, doesn't talk much, reads constantly. Her mom works 2 jobs, so Maya's here every day until 6:30. Emily watched Maya settle into a beanbag chair with a worn copy of Charlotte's Web. There was something familiar in the way the girl made herself small, invisible. Emily had mastered that same trick during her months with Travis. By the end of the first week, Emily had learned all 40 children's names. She knew that Carlos loved basketball, but struggled with math. That Jasmine was brilliant at art, but too shy to show anyone. That the twins, David and Daniel, were inseparable and prone to elaborate pranks. That Maya read at a high school level, but had trouble making friends. Emily fell in love with all of them. Her phone buzzed one evening as she was leaving the center, exhausted and happy in equal measure. Nikolai. How was your first week? Emily. Perfect. Challenging. Wonderful. I love it. Nikolai. I knew you would. Have you eaten dinner? Emily. Not yet. Too tired to cook. Nikolai. There's a Thai place 2 blocks from your apartment. Best pad Thai in the city. My treat. Order whatever you want and tell them to put it on the Volkov account. Emily. You don't have to. Nikolai. I know I don't have to. I want to. Eat, Emily. You need your strength. Emily smiled as she pocketed her phone. Over the past month, these small gestures had become routine. Nikolai checking in on her, making sure she ate, occasionally sending Irina with homemade meals. He was taking care of her in ways that should have felt controlling but somehow didn't. Maybe because he never demanded anything in return, never asked where she'd been or who she'd seen, never showed up unannounced or made her account for her time. He simply existed in the background of her life, a steady presence she'd come to depend on. The Thai restaurant knew exactly who she was when she called. "Miss Carter," the woman on the phone said warmly, "Mr. Volkov called ahead. We have your usual ready." Emily didn't have a usual. She'd never eaten here before. But 15 minutes later, when she picked up her order, she found pad thai exactly how she liked it. Extra peanuts, mild spice, extra lime on the side. Nikolai had been paying attention to details she'd mentioned in passing during their late-night texts. Emily: "How did you know my pad thai order?" Nikolai: "You told me 3 weeks ago. You said you liked it mild because Travis used to order everything extra spicy to prove how tough he was, even though you hated it." Emily stared at the message, something warm and dangerous blooming in her chest. Nikolai remembered. He'd remembered a throwaway comment made during a conversation about completely different things. Emily: "Thank you for remembering, for everything." Nikolai: "You don't need to thank me every time I do something nice. I enjoy it." Emily: "Why?" Nikolai: "Because seeing you happy makes me happy. Is that allowed?" Emily sat on her couch with pad thai growing cold in her lap, trying to process the emotions swirling through her. She was falling for Nikolai Volkov. Had been falling for weeks now. Every text, every small kindness, every moment of unexpected vulnerability had pulled her deeper. But what did she really know about him? That he was dangerous, that he'd saved her life, that he funded community centers and texted her every night and remembered how she took her pad thai. It wasn't enough. It was too much. It was everything and nothing. Emily: "Can I ask you something?" Nikolai: "Always." Emily: "Do you want to have dinner with me? Not Thai delivery, actual dinner, together." The pause before his response felt eternal. Nikolai: "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Emily: "Probably not, but I'm asking anyway." Nikolai: "Tomorrow night. I'll pick you up at 7. Emily set her phone down with shaking hands. She'd just asked Nikolai Volkov on a date, a man who terrified criminals and funded children's programs in equal measure, a man who made her feel safer than she'd felt in years and more alive than she'd felt in forever. This was either the best decision she'd ever made or the worst. Tomorrow would tell. Nikolai arrived exactly at 7, driving a different car than Emily had seen before, a sleek silver sedan that probably cost more than most people's houses. He wore a dark suit that fit him perfectly, his hair styled back from his face. He looked dangerous and sophisticated and absolutely devastating. Emily had spent an hour getting ready, settling finally on a simple black dress that Irina had mysteriously delivered that afternoon, along with a note: "Every woman needs a perfect black dress." "And you look beautiful," Nikolai said when she answered the door. His eyes held an intensity that made her breath catch. "You clean up pretty well yourself." Emily grabbed her coat, trying to calm her racing heart. The restaurant was the kind of place Emily had only read about in magazines. Soft lighting, white tablecloths, a wine list thicker than most books. The maitre d' greeted Nikolai by name and led them to a private corner table with a view of the city lights. "This is too much," Emily whispered as Nikolai held her chair. "Nothing is too much." He settled across from her, his gray eyes catching the candlelight. "You deserve beautiful things, Emily. You should get used to that." Dinner was an exercise in revelation. They talked about everything and nothing: Emily's work at the center, Nikolai's various business ventures, books they'd read, places they wanted to travel. The conversation flowed as easily as it did in their texts, but with an added dimension of physical presence that made Emily hyper-aware of every gesture, every smile, every moment when their eyes met across the table. "Tell me about Moscow," Emily said over dessert. "What was it like growing up there?" Nikolai's expression shifted, something darker moving behind his eyes. "Cold, violent, unforgiving. I was orphaned at 12, spent my teenage years on the streets, learning to survive by any means necessary. Made connections with people who taught me skills I probably shouldn't have learned." "What kind of skills?" "How to fight, how to intimidate, how to make people disappear when necessary." He said it matter-of-factly, watching her face for reaction. "I came to America at 23 with nothing but those skills and a willingness to use them. Built everything I have now from that foundation." Emily should have been horrified. She should have made an excuse and left. Instead, she reached across the table and placed her hand over his. "We all do what we have to do to survive," she said quietly. "I stayed with a man who was killing me because I was too afraid to be alone. You did what you had to do in Moscow. Neither of us should be ashamed of our survival." Nikolai looked down at her hand on his, then back up to her face. "You're not afraid of me." "Should I be?" "Most people are." "I'm not most people." Emily smiled. "And you saved my life. That counts for something." "It counts for everything." Nikolai turned his hand over, threading his fingers through hers. The touch sent electricity up her arm. "Emily, I need you to understand something. The things I've done, the life I lead, it's not safe. People want what I have. They'd use you to get to me if they knew how much you're starting to mean to me." "How much do I mean to you?" The question hung between them, weighted with possibility. "More than I should allow," Nikolai admitted. "More than is wise or safe. But I can't seem to help it. Every text, every conversation, every moment I spend thinking about you when I should be working, you've gotten under my skin, Emily Carter." Emily's heart was hammering so hard she was certain he could hear it. "You've gotten under mine too. I didn't want to. I tried not to. But here we are." "Here we are," Nikolai echoed. His thumb traced circles on her palm. "What do we do about it?" "I don't know, but I don't want to stop." Emily met his gaze steadily. "Whatever this is, whatever it becomes, I want to find out." Nikolai paid the bill and they walked out into the cool night air. Instead of heading to the car, he steered her toward a small park across the street. They walked in comfortable silence, her hand still in his, the city sounds muted and distant. "I haven't felt this way about anyone in a very long time," Nikolai said finally. "It's terrifying." "Why terrifying?" "Because caring about someone makes you vulnerable. It gives people leverage. In my world, that's dangerous." Emily stopped walking and turned to face him. "Then maybe it's time to change your world. Start building something different. You're already doing it with the community center. Why not do it with your life?" "It's not that simple." "Why not? You're powerful enough to do whatever you want. You could walk away from the dangerous parts. Focus on the legitimate businesses. Build something clean." Nikolai cupped her face gently in his hands, careful of the fading bruises. "You make it sound so easy, like I can just decide to be a different person." "You already are a different person. The man who funds programs for children, who texts me every night to make sure I'm okay, who remembered my pad thai order, that's who you really are. The rest is just survival." He kissed her then, soft and careful and achingly tender. Emily's world tilted on its axis. This was nothing like kissing Travis, which had always felt like a performance, like she was playing a role. This felt real. This felt like coming home. When they pulled apart, Nikolai rested his forehead against hers. "You're going to ruin me, Emily Carter." "Maybe we'll ruin each other." She smiled against his lips. "Maybe that's the point." They drove back to her apartment in silence, heavy with possibility. Nikolai walked her to her door, ever the gentleman, despite the heat in his eyes. "I should go," he said, though he made no move to leave. You should, Emily agreed, though she didn't want him to. Emily. He caught her hand as she reached for her keys. This thing between us, it's real. It matters. But my world is complicated and dangerous. I need to know you understand what you're getting into. I understand enough, and I'm choosing this anyway. I'm choosing you. Something fierce and possessive flared in Nikolai's eyes. He pulled her close and kissed her again, deeper this time, with an intensity that left her breathless. Lock your door, he said when they finally separated. Text me when you're inside. I will. Emily watched him walk away, her lips still tingling from his kiss, her heart racing with possibility and promise. She was falling in love with a dangerous man. Maybe she'd already fallen, and for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of where she might land. The weeks that followed took on a dreamlike quality. Emily worked with the children during the day, losing herself in their laughter and stories and endless energy. Maya slowly opened up to her, sharing thoughts about books and dreams about becoming a writer someday. Carlos improved his math grades with Emily's patient tutoring. Jasmine's artwork began appearing on the walls, her shyness gradually giving way to quiet confidence. And every evening, Nikolai was there. Not always physically, his work often took him away for days at a time, but always in spirit. Texts throughout the day, phone calls late at night, occasional surprise visits that made Emily's heart leap into her throat. They fell into a rhythm that felt both new and ancient. Dinner dates at restaurants Emily had never dreamed of entering. Long walks through the city, talking about everything and nothing. Quiet evenings in her apartment, Nikolai's presence filling the space in ways that felt permanent and right. He never pushed for more than she was willing to give. Never demanded access to parts of herself she wasn't ready to share. He simply existed alongside her, patient and steady and absolutely certain in his affection. Emily's life transformed in ways both large and small. She laughed more, smiled constantly, started thinking about a future that extended beyond simple survival. She enrolled in online classes to finish the college degree she'd abandoned when she met Travis. Started writing again, filling notebooks with observations and stories and fragments of poems. She was becoming herself again, or maybe for the first time. 3 months after that first dinner, Nikolai took her to the penthouse she'd stayed in after her rescue. Irina had prepared a meal that could have fed an army, her way of showing approval, Nikolai explained. They ate on the balcony, overlooking a city that sparkled like a constellation fallen to earth. I have something for you, Nikolai said as they finished dessert. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Emily's heart stopped. Nikolai, it's not what you think. He smiled, reading her panic. Open it. Inside was a key on a simple silver chain. It's a key to this apartment, Nikolai explained. You're here so often anyway, and I want you to feel like you belong. This is your space as much as mine. Come whenever you want. Stay as long as you want. Make it yours. Emily stared at the key, emotions warring in her chest. This was huge. This was commitment and trust and a future taking shape. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Nikolai took the key and fastened the chain around her neck. You've already made yourself at home in my life, Emily. I want you to have a home in my space too. She kissed him then, pouring everything she felt into the gesture. Gratitude and affection and the first stirrings of something deeper, something that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. They made love that night for the first time, slowly and carefully, Nikolai treating her like she was made of glass and gold. Every touch was reverent. Every kiss was a promise. He learned the landscape of her body with the same intensity he brought to everything else, memorizing what made her gasp, what made her sigh, what made her arch against him. Afterward, they lay tangled together in his massive bed, Emily's head on his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. I love you, Nikolai said into the darkness. I know it's too soon and probably unwise, but I love you, Emily Carter. I think I have since you sent that wrong number text and changed my entire life. Emily's breath caught. She'd known, of course, had felt it in every gesture, every glance, every moment of tenderness. But hearing the words made it real. I love you too, she whispered. I tried not to, tried to be smart and cautious, but you made it impossible. He pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her hair. We're going to build something beautiful, he murmured. You and me. Something better than either of us could have imagined. Emily closed her eyes and let herself believe it. Let herself imagine a future with this complicated, dangerous, tender man. A future where wrong numbers led to right places and broken people found ways to heal together. Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, two hearts beat in synchrony, finding rhythm and hope in the spaces between breaths. But the universe had other plans. And happiness, Emily would soon learn, was never guaranteed, especially not in Nikolai Volkov's dangerous world. The first hint of trouble came on a Tuesday afternoon 2 weeks later. Emily was helping Maya with a book report when Victor appeared in the doorway of the community center. He caught her eye and jerked his head toward the hallway. What's wrong? Emily asked immediately. Victor never came to the center, never disrupted her work. Nothing's wrong, but Nikolai wants you to be aware of something. Victor's expression was carefully neutral. There's been some movement from a rival organization. Nothing that concerns you directly, but Nikolai wants security increased around you and the center until things settle down. What kind of movement? The kind I can't discuss in detail. Just know that we're taking precautions. Victor handed her a new phone, sleeker, more expensive than her current one. This has GPS tracking. Keep it with you at all times. If anything feels wrong, anything at all, you press this button. He showed her a red panic button on the side. It alerts me, Mikhail, and Nikolai immediately. Emily took the phone with numb fingers. Should I be worried? No, Nikolai's just being cautious. It's probably nothing. But Victor's eyes said it was definitely something. That night, Nikolai came to her apartment looking exhausted. He pulled her into his arms without a word, just holding her close, breathing her in like she was oxygen. Talk to me, Emily said against his chest. Victor told me about the security increase. What's really going on? Nikolai sighed and led her to the couch. There's a man named Anton Fedorov. He used to work with me years ago. We had a disagreement about business practices. He went his own way, built his own organization. Now he thinks I owe him territory and profit sharing from ventures we're no longer partners in. Is he dangerous? Everyone in my world is dangerous, but yes, Anton is particularly volatile. He's been making noise about taking what he thinks is his. I need to handle it carefully. Emily cupped his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. Will you be safe? I'm always safe. I have the best security, the best people, the best strategic advantage. Anton is all bluster. But something in Nikolai's eyes suggested he wasn't as confident as his words implied. Promise me you'll be careful. I promise. He kissed her softly. Nothing and no one is going to take me away from you. We have too much to build together. Emily wanted to believe him, tried to believe him, but fear had taken root in her chest, cold and persistent. The security around her increased noticeably over the following days. Victor or Mikhail always nearby when she was at the center. A new doorman at her apartment building who was clearly more bodyguard than employee. Cameras she'd never noticed before suddenly visible everywhere she looked. Nikolai's texts became less frequent, his responses shorter. He was dealing with Anton, Emily knew, handling the threat through channels she didn't understand and probably didn't want to. Then came the Friday that changed everything. Emily was locking up the community center, walking Maya to her mother's car, when a black van pulled up to the curb. Wrong curb. Wrong vehicle. Wrong everything. Her hand went to the panic button, but she wasn't fast enough. 3 men emerged from the van, moving with practiced efficiency. Emily pushed Maya behind her, her heart in her throat. Emily Carter, one of the men said. "You're coming with us." "Like hell I am." Emily's finger found the panic button and pressed. Held. "That won't help you?" The man smiled. It was not a kind expression. "By the time Volkov's people arrive, you'll already be gone. Now, you can come quietly and spare the child any trauma, or we can do this the hard way." Emily looked at Maya's terrified face and made her choice. "Run," she told the girl. "Run inside and find Marcus. Tell him to call Nikolai. Go." Maya ran. The men grabbed Emily before she could follow. She fought, remembering the self-defense techniques Mikhail had been teaching her in secret, applying them with desperate strength. She got one man in the nose with her elbow, another in the groin with her knee, but there were three of them and one of her, and they were professionals. Something sharp pricked her neck. The world tilted. Emily's last conscious thought was of Nikolai, hoping he would find her, praying he wouldn't be too late this time. Then darkness swallowed her whole. Emily woke to the smell of mildew and old concrete. Her head throbbed where the injection site pulsed beneath her skin. She tried to move and discovered her hands were zip-tied behind her back, secured to a metal chair bolted to the floor. Her ankles were similarly bound. The room was windowless, lit by a single bare bulb hanging from exposed pipes. Water stained the concrete walls. In the corner, a metal door with no handle on the inside. A warehouse, Emily guessed. Abandoned, judging by the dust and decay. She tested the zip ties carefully, remembering something Mikhail had taught her during one of their training sessions. He'd shown her how to break them if she ever needed to, though at the time it had seemed like paranoid overkill. Now she thanked whatever instinct had made her pay attention. The door opened with a screech of protesting metal. A man entered, tall, lean, with salt and pepper hair and eyes like chips of ice. He wore an expensive suit that seemed absurdly out of place in this decrepit room. Emily Carter. His accent was thicker than Nikolai's, harder around the edges. "Do you know who I am?" "Anton Fedorov." Emily kept her voice steady despite the fear crawling up her spine. "Nikolai mentioned you." "Did he?" Anton smiled. It made Emily's skin crawl. "I wonder what he said." "Did he tell you I built half his empire? That I was there in the beginning when he had nothing? That he owes everything he has to my connections, my strategies, my willingness to get my hands dirty? He said you used to work together, that you went your separate ways. Is that the story he's telling?" Anton circled her chair slowly, like a shark scenting blood. "How diplomatic. The truth is messier, of course. The truth is that Nikolai Volkov stole what was mine. Territory, contacts, opportunities. He pushed me out and took credit for work I did." Emily didn't respond. She was too busy working on the zip ties, using the technique Mikhail had shown her, rocking her weight, testing the tension, looking for the weak point. "Nothing to say?" Anton stopped in front of her. "No defense of your lover? How disappointing. I expected more loyalty." "I barely know you," Emily said. "Why would I defend or condemn anyone based on one conversation?" Anton laughed. "Smart. I can see why Nikolai likes you. You're not just a pretty face." He pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. "Let's see if we can get his attention, shall we?" He held the phone up, taking a photo of Emily bound to the chair. Her heart sank as she realized what was coming next. "Perfect," Anton typed rapidly. "Now we wait. Nikolai has 24 hours to meet my demands, or I start sending him pieces of you. Starting with fingers, I think. He needs to know I'm serious." "He'll kill you," Emily said quietly. "You know that, right? Whatever you think you're accomplishing here, it ends with you dead." "Perhaps. Or perhaps it ends with Nikolai realizing he can't protect everyone, that his power has limits, that actions have consequences." Anton pocketed his phone. "Either way, you're the message. I suggest you get comfortable. It's going to be a long 24 hours. He left, the metal door slamming behind him with finality. Emily heard the heavy slide of a bolt being thrown. Then silence, broken only by the distant drip of water somewhere in the darkness. She went to work on the zip ties immediately. Mikhail's voice echoed in her memory, patient and methodical. Position your hands correctly. Find the locking mechanism. Apply pressure at the right angle. She'd practiced this a dozen times on random Tuesday afternoons when the community center was slow, never imagining she'd actually need it. The plastic cut into her wrists as she worked. Blood made her hands slippery, but slowly, gradually, she felt the tie begin to give. Meanwhile, across the city, Nikolai's world was exploding. Victor had reached the community center 3 minutes after Emily's panic button activated. He found Maya sobbing in Marcus's arms, her small body shaking with terror. "They took Miss Emily," the little girl managed between sobs. "3 men in a black van. She told me to run. She saved me." Victor's blood turned to ice. He pulled out his phone with hands that wanted to shake but didn't. Nikolai answered on the first ring. "Emily's been taken," Victor said without preamble. "Community center, 3 men, black van, approximately 5 minutes ago. The girl saw everything." The silence on the other end of the line was more terrifying than any rage could have been. When Nikolai finally spoke, his voice was deadly calm. "Lock down the center. Get the girl home safely. Find me that van. And get Mikhail. We're going to war." Victor had worked for Nikolai for 8 years. He'd seen his boss angry, violent, ruthless. But he'd never heard this particular tone, cold and absolute and promising destruction on a biblical scale. "Already on it, boss. We'll find her. We'd better. Because if anything happens to Emily, I'm going to burn this entire city to the ground until I find who's responsible." Nikolai hung up and stared at his phone for exactly 3 seconds. Then he moved, his mind already 6 steps ahead, calculating angles and probabilities and acceptable losses. This was Anton. It had to be. No one else would be stupid enough or desperate enough to make this move. No one else would know that taking Emily was the one guaranteed way to get Nikolai's attention. His phone buzzed with an incoming message. Unknown number, but Nikolai knew exactly who it was from. The photo showed Emily tied to a chair, her face pale but defiant, her eyes burning with fury rather than fear. Nikolai's chest constricted. She was alive, conscious, unharmed for now. The next message contained coordinates and a demand: $10 million and complete withdrawal from the eastern waterfront territories by midnight, or Emily would start losing fingers. Nikolai forwarded the photo to Victor with a single word: trace. Then he called Mikhail. "Gather everyone. Full tactical gear. I want our best people ready to move in 2 hours." "What's the play?" Mikhail's voice was already moving, already preparing. "We find the location. We go in hard and fast. We extract Emily and eliminate every single person involved." Nikolai's voice was ice and iron. "No negotiations, no mercy. They took something that belongs to me. I'm going to make them regret they were ever born." "Understood. What about Fedorov's demands?" "Fuck his demands. He just signed his own death warrant." Nikolai ended the call and stood at his office window, looking out at the city that had become his kingdom. Somewhere out there, Emily was frightened and bound and waiting for rescue. Just like 5 years ago, just like Alina had waited while Nikolai wasted precious minutes trying to negotiate, trying to be smart instead of fast. He hadn't been fast enough to save Alina, but he would be fast enough to save Emily. Or he would die trying. His phone rang. Victor. "We traced the photo metadata before they could scrub it. Old industrial area, warehouse district near the docks. I'm sending you the exact coordinates now." "How certain are you?" 90%. The metadata shows a location, but they could have moved her after taking the photo. "It's enough. Assemble at the dock warehouse. Silent approach. I want eyes on the building in 30 minutes. Nikolai grabbed his tactical vest from the safe behind his desk. Kevlar reinforced, pockets loaded with ammunition and equipment he'd hoped to never use again. His weapons followed. A Glock 19 for his shoulder holster, a backup pistol for his ankle, combat knife in his boot. He looked at himself in the mirror, a man dressed for war, about to wade into violence to save the woman he loved. This was who he really was, beneath the expensive suits and the charitable donations and the carefully constructed facade of legitimacy. This was the man Moscow had created, the killer Anton Fedorov had just been foolish enough to provoke. Emily had seen glimpses of this side of him, had accepted it, even. But she'd never seen him like this. Full tactical gear, weapons ready, every ounce of civilization stripped away to reveal the predator underneath. Would she still love him after tonight? After she saw what he was truly capable of? Nikolai pushed the thought away. It didn't matter. All that mattered was getting her back alive. In the warehouse, Emily finally felt the zip tie snap. Her hands were free, bloody and raw, but free. She kept them behind her back, not wanting to alert anyone watching through cameras she assumed existed. Her ankles were next. This would be trickier. She'd need to bend forward, work the ties with her freed hands, all while maintaining the appearance of being restrained. She just started working on the ankle restraints when she heard voices outside the door. Emily immediately returned her hands to the position behind her back, forcing her breathing to stay calm and even. The door opened. Anton entered with 2 guards, thick-necked men with dead eyes and visible weapons. Nikolai hasn't responded to my demands, Anton said conversationally. I'm disappointed. I thought you meant more to him than that. Maybe he's smarter than you think, Emily replied. Maybe he knows that giving in to ransom demands just encourages more kidnappings. Or maybe, Anton pulled out a knife. He needs more motivation. Emily's heart hammered against her ribs, but she kept her face carefully neutral. Cutting off my fingers won't make him comply faster. It'll just make him angrier. Perhaps. But it will certainly get his attention. Anton grabbed her hand, forcing it forward. Emily moved. The self-defense training Mikhail had drilled into her took over. She yanked her hand free, using Anton's own grip as leverage, and drove her palm up into his nose with all her strength. Cartilage crunched. Blood exploded. Anton staggered back, cursing in Russian. Emily didn't wait. She drove her heel down on the instep of the nearest guard, exactly where Mikhail had shown her. The man howled. She grabbed his gun arm, twisted, using his momentum against him, and had his weapon in her hands before he could react. She'd never fired a gun before, but Mikhail had made her practice at a range, teaching her the basics just in case. Her hands remembered the grip, the stance, the squeeze rather than pull of the trigger. The gunshot was deafeningly loud in the confined space. Emily missed. Her hands were shaking too badly for accuracy, but the bullet close enough to make the second guard dive for cover. She ran for the door, her ankle restraints hampering her movement, but not stopping her entirely. The warehouse beyond was a maze of shadows and stacked crates. Emily could hear shouting behind her, footsteps pounding on concrete. She needed to find an exit, needed to get outside where Nikolai's people could find her. If Nikolai was even looking, if he'd received Anton's demands, if he cared enough to come. No. Emily pushed the doubts away. Nikolai would come. She knew it with the same certainty she knew her own heartbeat. He would move heaven and earth to find her. But until he arrived, she had to save herself. Emily ducked behind a shipping container, working frantically at the ankle restraints. The zip ties finally gave way just as she heard footsteps approaching her position. She kicked off her shoes, too loud, too unstable, and moved silently in bare feet toward what looked like a loading dock door. Locked. Of course it was locked. There! Someone spotted her. Emily ran again, this time toward a rusted staircase that led to an upper level. Her lungs burned. Her wrists screamed where the zip ties had cut deep, but fear and adrenaline kept her moving. She reached the second level and found herself on a metal catwalk overlooking the warehouse floor. Below she could see Anton and at least 6 armed men spreading out to search for her. Too many. Even if she still had the gun, which she dropped somewhere in her flight, she couldn't fight 7 men. She needed to hide, needed to wait for rescue, Needed to stay alive long enough for Nikolai to find her. Emily spotted an office area at the far end of the catwalk. She moved toward it as silently as possible, praying the old metal wouldn't betray her with creaking. She almost made it. "On the catwalk!" someone shouted. Gunfire erupted. Emily dove through the office door as bullets sparked off metal behind her. She slammed the door and looked frantically for something to barricade it with. The office was empty except for a rusted desk and a filing cabinet. Emily shoved the desk against the door just as someone threw their weight against it from the other side. The desk held, but barely. She was trapped. No other exit, no weapons, no way out. Emily pulled out the phone Victor had given her, praying it still had battery and signal. She pressed the panic button again, holding it down, then typed a quick message to Nikolai. "Warehouse near docks, second floor office. Maybe 7 hostiles. I love you." She hit send just as the desk began to splinter under repeated impacts. Outside the warehouse, Nikolai crouched in the shadows with Victor, Mikhail, and 8 of his best operators. They'd arrived to find the building exactly where the metadata indicated, a decrepit warehouse in a district that had seen better decades. Thermal imaging showed multiple heat signatures inside. Victor had counted at least 8, possibly more. 2 entry points, Mikhail reported quietly. Main loading dock and a side entrance, both accessible. Nikolai was studying the thermal readouts when his phone buzzed. Emily's message lit up his screen. Relief and terror hit him simultaneously. She was alive. She was mobile enough to text, but she was trapped in an office with 7 armed men between her and freedom. "Change of plans," Nikolai said, his voice deadly calm. "Emily's on the second floor, northwest corner. We go in hard, we go in fast, and we don't stop until she's safe. Anyone who isn't Emily is a hostile. Treat them accordingly." His team nodded, checking weapons and gear with the practiced efficiency of professionals. "Victor, you take 3 men through the loading dock. Suppress and distract. Mikhail, you're with me on the side entrance. We head straight for Emily's position. No stops, no distractions. Clear?" "Crystal," Mikhail confirmed. Nikolai checked his Glock one final time, chambered around, and looked at his phone. Emily's message stared back at him. "I love you." "If anything happens to me," Nikolai said quietly to Victor, "make sure Emily gets everything. The properties, the accounts, all of it. And make sure Anton Fedorov dies screaming. Nothing's happening to you, boss. We're getting her back. Move out." They split into 2 teams. Nikolai watched Victor's group disappear toward the loading dock, then turned to Mikhail. "Ready?" "Always." They hit the side entrance like a breaking wave, Mikhail's shoulder against the door, both of them moving through the opening with weapons up and ready. The first guard never knew what hit him. Mikhail's suppressed pistol coughed twice, and the man went down silently. The warehouse interior was exactly as the thermal imaging had shown, a maze of crates and containers creating blind corners and ambush points. Nikolai moved through it with the muscle memory of 1,000 previous operations, his mind cool and calculating even as his heart screamed Emily's name. Gunfire erupted from the loading dock. Victor's team had engaged. The distraction worked perfectly. Hostiles scrambled toward the sound, leaving Nikolai's path clearer. He took the stairs to the second level 3 at a time, Mikhail covering his back. The office door was visible at the far end of the catwalk, barricaded and under assault by 3 men trying to break it down. Nikolai didn't hesitate, didn't announce himself, didn't offer mercy. His first shot took the nearest man in the back of the head. The second man had time to turn before Mikhail's bullet found his chest. The third managed to get his weapon up, managed to fire a wild shot that sparked off metal inches from Nikolai's head. Nikolai's return fire was not wild. The man crumpled. "Emily!" Nikolai called through the damaged door. "It's me. I'm coming in." "Nikolai?" Her voice, muffled but unmistakably hers. Alive. Safe. He kicked the door open, desk and all, and there she was. Bloody, disheveled, barefoot, and terrified but absolutely, gloriously alive. Emily threw herself into his arms hard enough to nearly knock him over. Nikolai caught her, held her, breathed her in like oxygen after drowning. "I've got you," he murmured into her hair. "I've got you. You're safe now." "There's more of them," Emily managed. "Anton." "I'll handle Anton. Mikhail, get her out of here." "No." Emily pulled back, meeting his eyes. "I'm not leaving you." "Emily, I said no. We leave together or not at all." Nikolai wanted to argue, wanted to force her to safety, but there was steel in Emily's eyes, a strength that reminded him why he'd fallen for her in the first place. "Stay behind me," he ordered. "Do exactly what I say, when I say it. Understood?" "Understood." They moved as a unit, Nikolai on point, Emily in the middle, Mikhail bringing up the rear. The catwalk offered a clear view of the warehouse floor below, where Victor's team had the remaining hostiles pinned down. All except one. Anton Fedorov stood in the center of the floor, gun drawn, blood from his broken nose staining his expensive suit. He looked up and saw Nikolai. "There you are!" Anton's laugh was slightly hysterical. "The great Nikolai Volkov coming to rescue his woman. How romantic!" "It's over, Anton," Nikolai called down. "Your men are dead or dying. Let it end here." "And we're just getting started." Anton grabbed one of Victor's downed men, wounded but alive, and pressed his gun to the man's head. "Come down here and face me like a man, or I execute your soldier." Nikolai's jaw tightened. The man Anton held was Dmitri, one of his longest-serving operators. A good man. A loyal man. "Don't," Emily whispered. "It's a trap." "I know." Nikolai handed his backup pistol to Mikhail. "Keep her safe, no matter what happens. Keep her safe." "Boss, that's an order." Nikolai descended the stairs with his hands visible and empty, his primary weapon holstered. Every instinct screamed trap, but he couldn't let Dmitri die. Couldn't sacrifice his people, not even to ensure his own safety. Anton's smile widened as Nikolai reached the floor. "There's the Nikolai I remember, still playing the hero, still pretending to be better than he is." "Let him go, Anton. Your fight is with me." "My fight was always with you." Anton shoved Dmitri aside and raised his gun. "You took everything from me, my territory, my reputation, my future. Now I'm going to take everything from you." He fired. The bullet caught Nikolai in the shoulder, spinning him around. He went down hard, his vision whiting out from the impact. Emily screamed his name. Anton swung his gun toward the catwalk, toward Emily. Nikolai moved through pain and shock and the absolute certainty that he could not, would not, let Anton hurt her. His hand found his holster, drew his weapon, fired. One shot, center mass, just like he'd been trained. Anton staggered, looked down at the spreading red stain on his chest with an expression of genuine surprise. "You always were faster than me," he said, almost conversationally. Then he fell. The warehouse erupted in controlled chaos. Victor's team securing the perimeter. Mikhail racing down the stairs with Emily. Emily reaching Nikolai's side, her hands already applying pressure to his wound. "Don't you dare die on me," she said fiercely, tears streaming down her face. "Not after all this. Not now. Not planning on it." Nikolai managed a weak smile despite the fire in his shoulder. "Takes more than one bullet to stop me." "Ambulance is 3 minutes out," Victor reported. "Police will be here in 5. "Get the scene cleaned," Nikolai ordered, his voice weaker than he wanted. "Make it look like self-defense. Anton kidnapped Emily. We came to rescue her. He fired first." "Already on it, boss." Nikolai looked up at Emily, her face blurry through pain and blood loss. "Are you okay? Did they hurt you?" "I'm fine. I'm fine because you came for me." Emily pressed harder on his wound, making him hiss, "Just like I knew you would." "Always," Nikolai promised. "I will always come for you." The ambulance arrived with sirens screaming. EMTs swarmed Nikolai, prying Emily's blood-soaked hands away from his shoulder. She tried to follow him into the ambulance, but Victor gently held her back. "Let them work, Emily. We'll meet them at the hospital, I promise." Emily watched the ambulance pull away, lights flashing, carrying the man she loved toward an uncertain future. She stood in the aftermath of violence, covered in blood that wasn't hers, surrounded by bodies and bullet casings, and the wreckage of Anton Fedorov's desperate gambit. She should be traumatized, should be crying or screaming or falling apart. Instead, she felt strong, capable, unbroken. She'd fought back. She'd escaped. She'd survived long enough for rescue to arrive. And when push came to shove, when Anton had threatened everything, Nikolai had chosen her, had taken a bullet for her, had killed for her. Emily looked at Mikhail, who stood watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Teach me," she said. "Everything you know about fighting, about weapons, about protecting myself. I never want to be helpless again." Mikhail's answering smile was sharp and approving. "We start tomorrow, after we make sure the boss survives the night." At the hospital, Emily paced the surgical waiting room for 3 hours while doctors worked to remove the bullet from Nikolai's shoulder. Victor sat quietly in the corner, making calls and managing the police investigation. Irina arrived with clean clothes and food Emily couldn't eat. Finally, a surgeon emerged, still in his scrubs. "Mr. Volkov is stable. The bullet missed major arteries. He'll need physical therapy and rest, but he should make a full recovery." Emily's knees nearly gave out from relief. "Can I see him?" "He's in recovery now. Give us another hour to move him to a private room." That hour felt longer than the 3 before it. Emily showered in the hospital bathroom, washing away blood and fear and the lingering scent of that warehouse. She changed into the clothes Irina had brought, soft jeans and a sweater that smelled like her apartment, like normal life, like before. When they finally let her into Nikolai's room, he was awake but groggy, his shoulder heavily bandaged. "Hey," he said, his voice rough from intubation. "Hey yourself." Emily took his hand carefully, mindful of the IV line. "You scared me." "Sorry, wasn't planning to get shot." Nikolai squeezed her fingers gently. "But I'd do it again, 1,000 times. Whatever it takes to keep you safe." "I know." Emily leaned down and kissed him softly. "That's why I love you, and why you're never doing something that stupid again." "Can't promise that. Keeping you safe is kind of my thing now." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just existing together, alive and whole and together. Finally, Emily said, "Mikhail's going to train me, really train me. I'm never going to be helpless again." Nikolai studied her face, seeing something there that made him smile. "You were never helpless, Emily. You broke free of those restraints on your own. You escaped 7 armed men. You survived until I could get there. That's not helpless. That's a fighter." "Then I'm going to become a better fighter, strong enough to stand beside you, equal partners." "We already are equal partners." Nikolai lifted her hand to his lips. "But if training makes you feel more secure, then train. Mikhail's the best. He'll teach you well." A knock on the door interrupted them. Victor poked his head in. "Sorry to interrupt, but the police want statements. I can stall them if you need more time." "No." Nikolai shifted, wincing at the pain in his shoulder. "Let's get it over with. Emily, you remember what to say?" She nodded. "Anton kidnapped me for ransom. You came to rescue me. He shot first. You defended yourself. Self-defense all the way." "Smart woman. Victor will handle the details. By tomorrow, this will all be officially resolved." The police interview was brief and professional. Victor had already laid the groundwork, security footage edited, witness statements aligned, physical evidence positioned. Anton Fedorov had kidnapped Emily Carter in a desperate bid for money and territory. Nikolai Volkov had mounted a rescue operation. Anton had fired first. End of story. The investigating detective seemed almost relieved to close it so neatly. No one wanted to dig too deep into Nikolai Volkov's business, not if they wanted to keep their careers intact. By midnight, Emily and Nikolai were alone again. He was sleeping fitfully, pain medication wearing off. Emily sat in the chair beside his bed, watching him breathe, counting each rise and fall of his chest like a prayer of gratitude. They'd survived. Both of them. Against odds that should have destroyed them. And tomorrow, Emily knew, they would wake up and continue building the life they'd started with a message to the wrong number. But they would build it stronger this time, together, unbreakable. She took Nikolai's hand and held it through the long night, keeping vigil over the dangerous, complicated, beautiful man who had saved her life and then let her save his right back. Dawn broke over the city with golden light that filtered through the hospital blinds, painting stripes across Nikolai's sleeping face. Emily hadn't moved from her vigil, her hand still clasped in his, her body stiff from hours in the uncomfortable chair. She didn't care. Being close to him, feeling the steady warmth of his pulse beneath her fingers, was worth any amount of physical discomfort. Nikolai stirred as the sun touched his eyes. He blinked slowly, orienting himself, then turned his head to find Emily watching him. "You didn't sleep," he said, his voice rough. "Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Anton pointing that gun at you." Emily's throat tightened. "I thought I'd lost you." "Takes more than one bullet." Nikolai tried to sit up and immediately regretted it, pain lancing through his shoulder. "Though I'll admit, this hurts more than I expected." "That's because you're human, despite what you seem to think." Emily stood and adjusted his pillows carefully. "The doctor said 6 weeks minimum for recovery. No work, no stress, just rest and physical therapy." 6 weeks? Nikolai looked horrified. "I can't take 6 weeks off. The businesses, the operations, will run fine without you. Victor and Mikhail are perfectly capable of managing things. You taught them well." Emily's tone left no room for argument. "You're taking the time to heal properly. End of discussion." Something shifted in Nikolai's expression, surprise giving way to amusement, then to something deeper. "You're not afraid of me anymore, are you?" "I was never afraid of you. I was afraid of needing you, of depending on someone again after Travis." Emily sat on the edge of his bed. "But last night taught me something important. Needing someone doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. And I need you, Nikolai. Not because I can't survive without you, but because I don't want to." Nikolai reached up with his good arm and cupped her face. "I need you too, more than I've needed anyone in my entire life. You make me want to be better than I am, to build something clean and good and worth protecting." "Then let's do it, together." Emily leaned into his touch. "But first, you heal. Doctor's orders." The weeks that followed established a new rhythm. Nikolai was a terrible patient, restless, impatient, constantly trying to work from his hospital bed until Emily threatened to have Victor confiscate his phone. She visited every day, bringing updates from the community center, stories about the children, small pieces of normalcy to combat the sterile hospital environment. Maya came once, clutching a handmade card covered in hearts and crayon drawings. "Thank you for saving Miss Emily," she whispered to Nikolai, her eyes huge and serious. "She's my favorite teacher." "Mine too," Nikolai said gently, accepting the card like it was made of gold. "Thank you for being brave and getting help. You saved her life too." The little girl beamed and threw her arms around Emily, and something in Nikolai's chest cracked open at the sight. This was what Emily had brought into his life. Connections, meaning, reasons to be better than the violent man Moscow had created. After 10 days, the doctors released Nikolai with strict instructions about physical therapy and wound care. Emily insisted he recover at her apartment rather than his penthouse. "You need someone to make sure you don't overdo it," she explained, brooking no argument. "And I'm not commuting to your place every day to babysit you." "Babysit?" Nikolai raised an eyebrow despite the pain medication making him drowsy. "Is that what we're calling it?" Would you prefer forcibly preventing you from being an idiot? I prefer letting my girlfriend take care of me because she loves me. That too. Emily kissed him softly. Now get in the car before I change my mind and let you suffer alone in your fancy penthouse. Living together, even temporarily, revealed new dimensions of their relationship. Emily learned that Nikolai was grumpy in the mornings before coffee, that he slept fitfully when in pain, that he had nightmares sometimes about Moscow and things he'd done that still haunted him. Nikolai discovered that Emily sang off-key in the shower, that she read compulsively before bed, that she talked in her sleep about the children at the center. They learned to navigate each other's space and habits, learned to coexist in comfortable silence, learned that love wasn't just the grand gestures and dramatic rescues. It was also helping someone change their bandages, making sure they took their medication, sitting together in the quiet evening watching the city lights. Mikhail came by 3 times a week for Emily's training. He was a patient but demanding instructor, pushing her to master techniques that might save her life someday. Emily threw herself into the lessons with fierce determination, her body remembering the helplessness of being tied to that chair, the terror of Anton's knife. Never again. She would never be that vulnerable again. "You're getting good," Mikhail commented after she successfully executed a disarm technique. "Your instincts are solid. You just need more practice." "Then I'll practice." Emily reset her stance. Again. From the couch, Nikolai watched with a mixture of pride and concern. He wanted Emily safe, wanted her strong, but part of him hated that she needed these skills, that his world had forced her to become a fighter. As if reading his thoughts, Emily crossed to him after the session ended. "Stop brooding. This isn't your fault." "Isn't it? If you'd never met me, I'd probably be dead. Travis would have killed me eventually. You saved my life, Nikolai. Everything that's happened since then, the good and the bad, is because I'm alive. I'll take that trade every single time." She was right, and Nikolai knew it. But guilt was a persistent companion, whispering that Emily deserved better than a man with blood on his hands and enemies who might try to hurt her again. "What are you thinking?" Emily asked, settling beside him on the couch. "That I should let you go, for your own safety." Emily's expression hardened. "Try it, and I'll use everything Mikhail's teaching me to kick your ass. We're past the point of noble sacrifices, Nikolai. We're in this together. For better or worse. You don't get to make that choice for me. Even knowing how dangerous my world is, even after Anton, especially after Anton." Emily took his hand. "He tried to use me to hurt you. He failed. We won. And every day we're together, we keep winning. I'm not running from that." Nikolai pulled her close, mindful of his healing shoulder, and buried his face in her hair. "I love you. So much it terrifies me sometimes." "Good. Love should be a little terrifying. It means it matters." Emily tilted her face up to kiss him. "Now stop trying to protect me from yourself. I'm a grown woman who knows exactly what she's getting into." 6 weeks after the shooting, Nikolai returned to work with a clean bill of health and a new perspective. The bullet wound had given him time to think, to reevaluate, to consider Emily's words about building something better. He called a meeting with his top people, Victor, Mikhail, and the heads of his various operations. "We're going legitimate," he announced without preamble. "All of it. The gray area operations, the questionable imports, anything that could bring law enforcement attention. We're transitioning everything to legal enterprises over the next year." Victor's eyebrows rose. "That's a significant shift, boss. Some people won't be happy about it." "Then they can find new employment. I'm done operating in shadows. I'm done watching over my shoulder, wondering who's going to be the next Anton Fedorov. We have enough legitimate revenue streams to make this work. Real estate, import-export that's actually legal, investments. We build on that foundation." "This is because of Emily," Mikhail said. It wasn't a question. "Yes. And because I'm tired of being the man Moscow made me. I want to be someone she can be proud of. Someone who doesn't need to explain away his business practices or worry that his enemies will target the woman he loves. Nikolai's voice was firm. This is happening. You're either with me or you're not. Victor and Mikhail exchanged glances, then nodded in unison. We're with you, Victor said. We've always been with you. If you want to go clean, we'll help make it happen. The transition took months of careful planning and execution. Operations were shut down or sold. Questionable partnerships were dissolved. Money was moved, laundered through legitimate channels, invested in businesses that could withstand scrutiny. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't always smooth. But slowly, methodically, Nikolai Volkov transformed from a crime lord operating in the shadows to a legitimate businessman building an empire in the light. Through it all, Emily was his constant. She worked at the community center, her bond with the children deepening with each passing day. She continued her training with Mikhail until she could hold her own in a fight. She took online classes and finished her degree. She moved into Nikolai's penthouse properly, making the sterile space feel like a home with books and plants and photographs of the children she'd grown to love. And she loved Nikolai with a fierce, uncompromising devotion that transformed them both. 1 year after the warehouse, on a crisp autumn evening that reminded Emily of the day she'd sent that fateful wrong number text, Nikolai took her back to the community center. The building had been renovated over the past months. New paint, new floors, new equipment. Nikolai had poured money into it, transforming it from a barely surviving charity into a state-of-the-art facility that could serve hundreds of children. Why are we here? Emily asked as Nikolai led her through the empty building. It's Saturday. No one's here. Just trust me. He brought her to the gymnasium, which had been decorated with strings of lights and flowers. Patricia, Marcus, Sophia, and Tom stood off to one side, all dressed up and smiling. Victor and Mikhail flanked the entrance in suits, looking uncomfortable but pleased. Irina dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief, and in the center of the room stood a small platform, the children's artwork creating a backdrop of color and joy. Emily's breath caught as understanding dawned. Nikolai turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. A year ago, you sent a text message to the wrong number. You were desperate and afraid and looking for help. That message changed both our lives. It saved you from Travis, but Emily, it also saved me. Nikolai, let me finish. He squeezed her hands gently. Before you, I was a man who'd forgotten how to feel anything beyond anger and ambition. I'd built an empire, but it was hollow, empty. Then you came into my life and reminded me what it meant to be human, to care, to want to be better. He released one of her hands to reach into his pocket, withdrawing a small velvet box. Emily's eyes filled with tears. You've made me want to build something real and good. You've shown me that redemption is possible, that the past doesn't have to define the future. And I want to spend the rest of my life building that future with you. Nikolai opened the box, revealing a ring that caught the fairy lights and sparkled like captured stars. Emily Carter, will you marry me? Emily looked at the ring, then at Nikolai's face. This dangerous, complicated, beautiful man who'd saved her life and then let her save his. She thought about the journey that had brought them here, from that terrifying night in Travis's apartment to this moment surrounded by people they loved in a place that represented hope and second chances. Yes, she said, her voice steady and sure. Yes, I'll marry you. Nikolai slipped the ring onto her finger and pulled her into his arms, kissing her deeply while their friends applauded. When they finally broke apart, Emily was crying and laughing simultaneously. I have something for you too, she said, wiping her eyes. I was waiting for the right moment, but I think this is it. She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope, handing it to Nikolai with trembling hands. He opened it carefully, extracting a document that made his eyes widen. It was incorporation papers for a foundation. the Second Chances Foundation, dedicated to helping victims of domestic violence. Emily had listed herself as director and Nikolai as primary benefactor. "I've been planning this for months," Emily explained, "using everything you've taught me about business and everything I've learned working with the children. We'll provide safe housing, job training, legal assistance, counseling, everything I wish I'd had when I was with Travis, everything that might have helped Alina if she'd had somewhere to turn." Nikolai stared at the document, his throat tight with emotion. "This is incredible. I want to help people the way you helped me. I want to turn that wrong number text into something bigger, something that can save other women who are desperate and afraid and don't know where to turn." Emily's voice was passionate, fierce. "We can do this together, build something that matters." "We already have." Nikolai pulled her close again. "This foundation, this center, this life we're building, it all matters. You matter. More than anything." The celebration that followed was small but perfect. Patricia produced champagne and a cake. The children had made decorations that now adorned the walls. Maya presented Emily with another handmade card, this one declaring "Best Teacher and Future Bride" in careful crayon letters. As the evening wound down and their friends began to leave, Emily and Nikolai stood together at the window of the gymnasium, looking out at the neighborhood they were helping to transform. "Do you ever regret it?" Nikolai asked quietly. "Sending that text to the wrong number? Everything that came after?" Emily turned to face him, her engagement ring catching the light. "Not for 1 second. That text brought me to you. It brought me to this life, these children, this purpose. How could I ever regret that? Even the hard parts? Anton, the violence, seeing sides of me that most people would run from? Especially the hard parts. They proved we're strong enough to survive anything together." Emily reached up to touch his face. "You asked me once what we do about falling for each other. Remember?" "I remember." "Well, I have an answer now. We keep falling, deeper and harder every day. We build a life and a family and a future. We help people who need it, and we never, ever forget how lucky we are to have found each other, even if it took a wrong number to do it." Nikolai kissed her then, pouring everything he felt into the gesture, love and gratitude and promise and hope. When they separated, both were smiling. "Come on," Emily said, taking his hand. "Let's go home." They drove through the city together, past the apartment where Travis had nearly killed her, past the penthouse where Nikolai had first brought her to safety, past all the places that marked their journey. The night was clear, stars visible despite the city lights, and Emily thought about fate and chance and the mysterious ways life could change in an instant. One text message, one accidental connection. That's all it had taken to transform two broken people into something whole and beautiful. 6 months later, they were married in a small ceremony at the community center, surrounded by the children Emily had grown to love, and the family Nikolai had built from loyalty and trust. Maya was the flower girl, taking her role with appropriate seriousness. Victor and Mikhail stood as groomsmen, looking slightly uncomfortable in their formal wear, but genuinely happy for their boss. Patricia officiated, her voice warm with emotion as she spoke about second chances and found families. Emily wore a simple white dress, her hair loose around her shoulders. Nikolai wore a dark suit, his hand steady as he slipped the wedding band onto her finger. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves, promises of partnership and protection, of building something beautiful from broken pieces, of choosing each other every single day. When Patricia pronounced them married, the children erupted in cheers. Nikolai kissed his wife while their found family celebrated around them, and Emily thought her heart might burst from happiness. The reception was held right there in the gymnasium, the same space where Nikolai had proposed. Someone had hung more lights, and the children's artwork created a backdrop of color and joy. There was cake and music and laughter, and for one perfect evening, the past didn't matter. Only the present, only this moment, only the future stretching out before them. Late in the evening, when the children had gone home, and the adults were winding down, Nikolai pulled Emily onto the makeshift dance floor. They swayed together to soft music, her head on his shoulder, his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking?" Emily asked, her voice muffled against his chest. "That I'm the luckiest man alive. That you're the best thing that ever happened to me. That I can't wait to see what we build together. We've already built so much. And we're just getting started." Nikolai pulled back to look at her face. "The foundation launches next month. We're opening 2 more community centers by the end of the year. Victor's completely transitioned all the businesses to legitimate operations. We're building an empire, Emily, but this time, it's one we can be proud of." Emily smiled up at him, this dangerous man who'd become her salvation and her partner. "I love you, Nikolai Volkov." "I love you too, Emily Volkov." He tested her new name, liking the sound of it. "My wife, my partner, my everything." They danced until the music stopped and the lights dimmed until they were the last ones left in the building. Then they drove home together to the penthouse that Emily had transformed into a real home, filled with books and laughter and evidence of a life being lived fully. That night, as they lay tangled together in bed, Emily's phone buzzed on the nightstand. She reached for it drowsily, expecting a message from Patricia or one of the community center staff. Instead, it was from an unknown number. Emily's blood ran cold for just a moment, memories of that desperate night flooding back. But then she read the message, and everything changed. "I saw your foundation announcement. I've been with my abusive boyfriend for 2 years, and I don't know how to leave. Can you help me? Please." Emily sat up, her heart racing. She looked at Nikolai, who had sensed her tension and was watching her with concern. "What is it?" A woman asking for help. She saw the foundation announcement. Emily's voice was thick with emotion. "Nikolai, this is it. This is why we did all of this. So women like me, like her, have somewhere to turn when they're desperate. What are you going to do?" Emily looked at the message again, remembering what it felt like to be that desperate, that afraid, that lost. Then she started typing. "Where are you? We can help. You're not alone anymore." She hit send and looked at Nikolai. "We're going to help her, just like you helped me. We're going to give her a second chance." Nikolai pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "That's my girl, saving the world one wrong number at a time." Emily's phone buzzed again. An address, a plea for urgency, a life hanging in the balance. She was already getting dressed, already planning, already becoming for this stranger what Nikolai had been for her. Salvation in the darkness, hope when all seemed lost. Nikolai dressed too, calling Victor to coordinate, falling into the familiar rhythm of a rescue operation. But this time it wasn't about violence or revenge. It was about something better, something that mattered. As they headed out into the night, Emily thought about the journey that had brought them here. From victim to survivor to rescuer. From broken to healing to whole. From a desperate text to the wrong number to a life filled with purpose and love and second chances. The city spread out before them, full of people who needed help, who were lost and afraid and looking for hope. And Emily and Nikolai would be there for them, building something beautiful from their own broken pieces, proving that sometimes the wrong number is exactly the right one. Behind them, the penthouse stood warm and welcoming, a home built on foundation of trust and love. Inside, the incorporation papers for the Second Chances Foundation sat on the desk, ready to change lives. On the wall, a framed photo showed Emily and Nikolai on their wedding day, surrounded by children and chosen family, all of them smiling. And in Emily's purse, her phone held that original text message thread, the one that had started everything. "Please help me, he's going to kill me." "Where are you? Stay inside, I'm on my way." She'd kept it, a reminder of how far she'd come, how much she'd grown, how one moment of terror had led to a lifetime of love. It was proof that redemption was possible, that broken people could heal, that wrong numbers could lead to right places. As they drove through the city toward another woman who needed saving, Emily took Nikolai's hand and held it tight. They were partners now, in marriage and in mission, building a future one rescue at a time. And somewhere in the darkness, a frightened woman waited for salvation to arrive, not knowing that her message had reached two people who understood her fear intimately, who had walked through their own fire and emerged stronger, who would move heaven and earth to give her what they'd found. A second chance, a new beginning, a message to the wrong number that would change everything, whose love story had started with 3 desperate words and a stranger who answered.